about what I've tended to notice, especially in the comment section of people that tend to come across my channel. And most importantly, I want to give some context into how to take this information with stride and take it with a sense of passion, but also not to rationalize it. So for the most part, I came across attachment styles about 2.5 years ago. Specifically back then, I was in a relationship with someone who, quite frankly, was a very different person than I was, and had different values, different affections, different love languages, you name it. The idea is that attachments taught me how to understand this person, but it also was a bit of a double-edged sword in the sense that it taught me to also rationalize this person's behavior and to try to predict outcomes. And that's not something I want for any of you. I don't want you to use this information to try to justify in your mind how a person needs to act and how they're feeling or what they're expressing subconsciously. Instead, I want you to utilize it as a tool for proper analysis of a situation and getting a good adjustment to how to deal with situations. Hello, Patrick Flowers. How to deal with a situation such as a breakup, where all of a sudden you're caught in the middle and you're not really sure how to feel, or your emotions are overwhelming you and you're really trying to keep the anxiety in check. And of course, it tends to grow further and further the more you spiral. And for the most part, the majority of you that do find yourselves on my channel usually find yourselves on my channel because you have looked at books, you've looked at information sections on places like YouTube, and you haven't really gotten the answers you want, because there we get into the realm of the whole commercial side of things, where people are trying to sell you one all be all solutions. People are trying to show you that their way of thinking is correct. And although I don't necessarily think that these people have bad intentions in doing it, for the most part, no one person has the right answer. It's a collaboration of, let's just say, life experience along with some other elements, such as the type of breakup that you happen to go through and the type of people that you had to have been dating at the time. So what attachment is it tends to break things down into 4 categories, maybe 5 if you're into the whole chaos attachment theory aspect. But for the most part, the vast majority of people tend to be very secure. And the ironic part is that when people are secure, they don't tend to come to my channel. The vast majority of you that find yourselves on my channel find yourselves here because you are part of the anxious side of things. You are dealing with a wave of emotions that you truly do not know how to comprehend, and you do not know how to deal with. You don't know how to cope with. Someone never taught you these things. And this is where it really comes down when it comes to a breakup. It's not that a breakup in itself is traumatizing. It's that the lack of guidance is absolutely terrifying, especially when you haven't really learned to cope with your emotions properly. Even someone as extreme as a dismissive does feel pain, does feel anxiety, does feel mourning and remorse, but they might not necessarily make the collaboration or the correlation between the cause and effect of the situation. Instead, they will justify to themselves that they're feeling down because they're not working hard enough, or they're lacking direction in life, or maybe some aspect, something or another has an indirect consequence on how they're feeling. And this is where we really have to look at the logistics of what relationships are really about, because the vast majority of you have broken up with or have been dumped by someone that meant a tremendous amount to you, and you have my deepest sympathies in that regard. At the same time, you have to understand that this connection doesn't completely define you. You have a life outside of this person. You have purpose outside of this person. And unfortunately, for those of you that have really, dug deep into this relationship and found yourself in a codependent situation, the entire justification of your day-to-day task has been justified by this one person. And this, of course, leads to other situations, such as an inability to cope with day-to-day activities, an inability to find motivation because your one motivation was the person that you centralized your life behind. And this is where attachment styles is both a pro and a con. It's a pro in the sense that it will teach you why you're feeling the way you feel and why, through the collective traumas that you've experienced in life, you find yourself in the situation that you find yourself in. At the same time, and I've seen this many times, even on my Discord, where individuals will use attachment styles to justify their way of thinking, to justify or to mind read the other person and to say, oh, that person is going to come back eventually. Yours truly is also guilty of this, by the way. So for the most part, I want to distinguish between the content and the purpose. The purpose of this content is never and has never been to get the ex back. It's never even been to rekindle a relationship, even if it's a platonic one. It's been about showing you the roadmap, showing you the guides on why it is that we're feeling a certain way and why it is that we run into these type of situations, especially when we find ourselves in a codependent situation. This is where, for the most part, the vast majority of you really lack direction. And it's not to sound condescending. Like I was in this position myself, where I grew up in a family that didn't really express emotions in a very healthy way. They were very sporadic, very bipolar in nature, very abrupt. So it went from very hot to very cold very quickly. And it was a consistent hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold, until you started realizing that the situation was the toxic element. And this is where I do have to empathize with the dumper in many cases, because especially in realms such as YouTube, where the dumper gets a very bad rap. They get the label that they were the person that gave up, but it's not always like that. In fact, in the vast majority of cases, there is two sides to the story. And usually when I would coach people, you would peel away the layers of the onion and you discover the other side. But the important thing is not for you to analyze why the relationship didn't work out and why you find yourself single, but rather why it is that the situation or the relationship broke down, and to address, is this a situation where I am the cause of it, they're the cause of it, or more than likely you're both the cause of it, and it's a case of being unable to find a proper level of connection. This is where we usually have conflicts when it comes to attachments, especially for those that tend to be on the anxious side of the spectrum, because when you're dealing with a high level of anxiety, it tends to be very exhausting. It tends to be very overwhelming for the vast majority of people. With certain extents, like secure people can handle it for a time, but even then they will get really exhausted by the constant energy that's required. It's important that you look at yourself and truly be honest with yourself, regardless of what attachment you happen to be or what you've defined yourself as, to say, look, did I legitimately do something to cause the end of this relationship? And if the answer is yes, what can I do to address it? What can I do to take a look at the situation? What element of me am I not happy with? What element of me can result in a positive outcome? Most of you try to enter this with, I don't want to use the word fallacy, but I will, with the fallacy that you're going to one day get closure with this person. And in truth, the closure, although it usually comes internally. It doesn't come from the other person. On the rare occasion, it might, but you have to do this for you. And this is where, if you find yourself on my channel, no offense, you're lacking that motivation. You're lacking that purpose, that inner love in many cases, but more importantly, that inner motivation. You really want it to be about this other person. And you can't fake that. You can fake it for maybe a small period of time. And you can tell yourself, yeah, like, it's not about them, it's about me. But eventually the glimpse come out. And until you address that in therapy, until you address that with some kind of counseling or some kind of reflection or meditation, you're going to be caught in this cycle of repeating the same type of situations, the same type of relationships. Like, I've seen this enough times where you talk to a person and you ask them about their previous relationships, and it's either A, they didn't have any, or B, if they had any, it was an exact replication of the situation that they found themselves in, because internally they still hadn't learned the lesson. And regardless of where you are in that situation and how you find yourself in these situations, it's important for you to be self-forgiving and self-reflective. Part of that trauma, part of that pain that you're feeling right now, especially when you're processing the loss of someone else in your life, is that part of you that is looking to heal. It's looking to understand. Like, it's literally a part of your brain that has been disconnected from the rest. It's literally been amputated, and it's painful. It's physically painful. So it's important that you understand that it's okay to feel that pain. It's okay to process these lost emotions. What isn't okay is for you to take this information on channels like mine or other channels that I've recommended. Connection. There we go. I'm back. Apparently I had some issues with the connection. So going back to what I was saying, don't use this information to justify the other person, to justify the way they're thinking, and to try to mind read their situation. A person is going to think what they're going to think, regardless of what kind of lecture that you're going to give them. In fact, most people aren't really receptive to that kind of lecture, if I'm being completely honest. It's a case of they're going to learn when they're ready. And this is where you, as the dumpy in the majority of cases, really have to come to terms with it. There is a big possibility, regardless of how you educate yourself and how you justify it or rationalize it to the other person, if they're not ready, they're not going to learn. The question isn't whether they're going to learn. The question is whether you're going to learn. Are you going to take this pain and suffering that you've gone through and have it mean something? Or are you going to be caught in the realm of YouTube watching videos such as this, rationalizing to yourself over and over what could have been? This is where I don't want to end it on a sad note, because I don't think it's a sad note. Every single relationship I've had that has ended abruptly and painfully has always been for the best. Let me repeat that. Every single relationship, no matter the kind of relationship, whether it's platonic, work-based, or romantic, that has ended has never been for the worse. It has always, 100% of the time, been for the better. And it's been for the better because I have put the time and energy into myself to better myself, to better my career, to better my confidence level, to better my psychology, to get therapy, to deal with these issues that we all deal with in our day-to-day lives. The only comment I have for you that happened to come across this video is, if you're going to be justified by your pain and suffering, at least temporarily, make it mean something. Make it mean something for you, for your self-development, for your progress. Don't be caught in this hermit position where you're constantly in pain and suffering and self-loathing. It's okay for a time. I am going to give you empathy for a time, but you're not that child anymore. You're not that inner child that is screaming to be loved and affected. This is you as an adult taking ownership of the situation and saying, I am not going to be defined by the pain that's inflicted on me by another person. I am not going to be defined by my problems. This is where the key indicator of attachment really comes in, because depending on your attachment, you're going to reflect and you're going to internalize that lesson very differently. And it's not about looking at other people and saying this is how they're going to act. It's about looking at yourself and catching yourself in those moments of insecurity and saying, I recognize this. I recognize what I'm doing. I recognize that it's self-destructive, and I recognize that I want it to change. This is where you have the power. You have the power. No, you have the power to actually make a difference in your life alone. It's not saying that you can't help other people, but What I often find is people get caught up in this realm of helping others and forget to help themselves. What good are you, dead? What good are you depressed? You have to make the best of your situations. You have to really push yourself to make it worth your while, worth your time, worth your energy. It's then and only then that you're going to be able to build up the lesson and build up the criteria. I hope that that reflection offers some perspective. I do see some questions. Can you explain the justify part? Sure. So, you know what? That's a good point. I should explain the justify. So when I was coaching, a number of individuals would come on to a coaching session and they would say, I'm an AA, my partner's an FA, and they acted this way, they acted this way because of this, this, and this is how they're going to act over the next few months. What I often find is that people attach, no pun intended, they attach themselves to this definition in order to prolong the attachment to this other individual. So rather than accepting the terms that the relationship's over and processing that grief, it's a sense of false security where you try to you try in your mind to tell yourself a story that says it's going to end this way. It's almost like going to a psychic or doing tarot card reading. You're trying to take back control of the situation by manipulating the information that's being dealt to you. And for the most part, it's only going to work out in the sense that you're going to just prolong this attachment that you have with this person. And I'm not going to be one of those people that tells you need to dismiss this person and cut them out of your life entirely. No, that's not good either. You want to have a right level of balance where you can feel the emotions, process them, be around people that can support you. Don't be around people that enable it, because that's the other extreme. But be around people that can truly help you grow. And if you can be around those people that can help you grow, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to be in a position that in a year's time, you're going to be much happier with your life. You're going to be much more satisfied with or without a person in your life. Like, that's the key element that you need to look for. You need to look for people and put yourself in a situation where you're fully satisfied with where you find yourself. And if you can do that and you can be a positive reflection, not only to those around you, but yourself internally, you're going to be in a much better position the next time you find someone that you build a connection with. Because the more that we grow and the more that we reflect, the better the quality of person we tend to attract. We often forget that because we obsess over the people that have left us or the people that didn't find the value in us. And we might cry about it, and it's okay to cry about it. It's okay to feel those emotions. You are not the definition that this other person gave you. Like, if I think of half the things that my ex has said about me, I laugh at them, because none of them, none of the extreme ones anyway, had any justification, had no merit in the type of character I am, at least the character I am today. And it's important for me to reflect on the information that they gave me when the relationship ended and to see, did it have merit? And if it didn't have merit, which was the majority of cases, I can then develop other aspects of my life I'm not satisfied with. If they did have merit, if they had a reason to break up with me and I legitimately had to change, I will invest time and energy into changing that person that I am, if that's what I want. But I have to want it. I have to grieve the process, and most importantly, I have to be willing to accept and understand my mistakes. Understanding your shortfalls and understanding your limitations can go a long way in building character, because people, you can't fake that. People see through it. Even if you try to fake it for a time, it's not very long before people start catching on that you're a fake. So it's important that if you're dating other people and you're in a position where you're wanting to show a sense of self-value, then understand that the person that you're reflecting, the person that you're projecting onto this other person, has to be authentically you, because if it isn't, they're going to catch on pretty quickly. And that's never a good situation. I hope that answers your question, Flowers. I know that was a long-winded question response, but I hope it provides some context. Yo, Clutch, long time no see. Good to see you, bro. Hope all is well. Yeah, things are great. I did post that I got married, so that's the big thing. But for the most part, I'm living a great life. I have a great career. I'm in a position now where I'm going to be permanently residing in the United States, which is nice. It's nice to have some security. But things are good. And I did say I was going to start posting more content. Ironically enough, the reason I posted content today is that YouTube told me that apparently I'm no longer the part of the partners program, even though I have not been monetizing my videos for the last 2 years. Try to figure that one out. But hey, to each their own. But either way, I want to keep giving back to the community. Yes, Hank. Yes, Hank. Everyone sees you. I want to keep giving back to the community. I want to help people grow and get perspectives. And most importantly, I hope that when you found my channel and where you are today, or even when you leave my channel eventually, that you find yourselves in a better position. And if you can do that, and if you can progress moving forward, I've done my job and I have fulfilled what my destiny was, which is I want to be the parent figure that I never had. So if you guys can progress, you make me content, you make me happy. Not that I need that, but it's always nice to have. Either way, I appreciate all your time today. I will be posting stuff more often. I actually mean it because this is a pure motivation on my part. This is my way of giving thanks to the universe for putting me in a position to succeed. So I will continue to do that. And I wish you nothing but the best, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. With that being said, this is Clutch, signing off.